Tonight we delve into a case that stands as one of the most documented and disturbing incidents in the modern history of exorcisms. It's a story that crosses the line between religious belief and documented medical reality, ending not in a cinematic triumph, but in a tragic death. We're examining the facts surrounding Anneliese Michel, the German woman whose agonizing ordeal in the mid-1970s led to a sensational trial and became the primary inspiration for the Hollywood film The Exorcism of Emily Rose. I'm going to set aside the sensationalism and the fictional embellishments and focus squarely on the historical record, the medical reports, and the legal consequences of the over 60 exorcism rites she endured. This is a chilling true crime tragedy rooted in a clash of faith, desperation, and alleged demonic possession. Only on this episode of The Weekly Strange. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Weekly Strange. I'm your host, John F. Murs, author, actor, adventurer. Anna Elisabeth Michel, known as Anneliese, was born in 1952 in Bavaria, West Germany, into a devoutly Catholic family. Her early life was marked by a strict religious upbringing, an environment that would later play a critical role in how her severe illness was interpreted. In 1968, at the age of 16, Anneliese experienced a severe seizure while at school. She was diagnosed by medical professionals with temporal lobe epilepsy. This condition, which affects the area of the brain responsible for processing senses, memory, and emotions, can cause hallucinations, convulsions, and changes in mood and behavior. The seizures continued, and Anneliese's psychological state deteriorated. She developed severe depression and was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Despite being treated with anti-seizure medications like Tegretol and various antipsychotic drugs over a period of 5 years, her symptoms worsened. By the early 1970s, Anneliese's symptoms began to take on distinctly religious character. She became intolerant of religious objects, such as crucifixes and holy water, claiming they burned or sparkling too intensely for her to look at. She began to hear voices, often telling her she was damned and would rot in hell. These manifestations, combined with her strict religious environment, led her and her family to believe that her condition was no longer medical, but spiritual. They were convinced she was possessed by a demon. At this juncture, it's crucial to understand the documented medical perspective. Doctors were treating her for epilepsy and psychosis. However, the family, feeling that years of medication had failed, turned exclusively to the church. Anneliese's family repeatedly appealed to the Catholic Church for an exorcism. Initially, their requests were denied, as the church operates on a strict criteria outlined in the Rituale Romanum for determining authentic possession versus mental illness. After several rejections, however, two priests, Father Ernst Alt and Father Alt and Renz, became convinced by the severity and specificity of Anneliese's symptoms. They finally received permission from the local bishop Josef Stangl of Würzburg to perform the Great Exorcism according to the 1614 Rituale Romanum. And in 1975, the family made the fateful decision to stop consulting doctors and rely solely on the religious rite. Over the next 10 months, Anneliese endured a staggering total of 67 exorcism sessions performed once or twice weekly, with each session lasting up to 4 hours. The sheer physical and mental toll of this relentless ritual is unimaginable. To document the process and the voices of the alleged demons, practice the church sometimes uses for verification, the priests recorded many of these sessions. It is the content of these 42 audio tapes that provides the most visceral, chilling, and contested evidence in the entire case. These tapes were later played in court during the negligent homicide trial, providing the world with a horrifying glimpse into the ordeal. The most compelling and arguably the most frightening aspect of the Anneliese Michel case lies in these audio recordings. The tapes captured not just the prayers of the priests, but the unsettling guttural responses allegedly coming from Anneliese. The voices captured sounded unlike her own, deep, raspy, often screaming and speaking in archaic German or sometimes Latin, languages Anneliese was not known to speak fluently. The priests claimed to identify 6 distinct entities, among them notorious figures. One exchange allegedly goes like this.
Wann bist du überhaupt hier?
Ich hab recht dazu, dass ich in dem Weib ein bin. Ich trag dir die Rotznase noch so lang, bis es lebt wird. Ist so blöde Weib. Für uns geht's kein Zurück. Sie in alle Ewigkeit.
First the priest speaks. By the sign of the cross I command you, who are you? Speak the name of the unholy one who torments this soul. The priest is answered by a voice. I am Judas. I am Judas Iscariot. Cursed be the day I was born. The priest replies, Why do you hold this body? Why do you cling to this child of God? The voice responds, She is chosen. She is mine. She must suffer for the apostates. She must atone for the priests who betray the church. I don't know, it's a little freaky to me. In other segments, the voices are heard arguing with the priests and, chillingly, arguing among themselves. Multiple distinct voices struggling for control of Anneliese's body. The priests believed they had successfully identified several characters, one being Lucifer himself, the chief entity full of pride and arrogance. They also identified Cain, the biblical fratricide. Further, they identified Judas Iscariot, the betrayer of Christ, often expressing despair. And surprisingly, they also identified Adolf Hitler. This was perhaps the most jarring claim, with the voice claiming to be the former dictator, often speaking with rage. The priests described the atmosphere during these sessions as being filled with an oppressive, tangible evil. On the tapes, Anneliese can be heard crying, screaming, and making loud, violent noises as she was restrained by chains or ropes to the bed, fighting against the ritual. Witnesses stated that her eyes would turn completely black, and her small body would occasionally demonstrate superhuman strength, snapping the restraints. For those who believe, the tapes are irrefutable proof of possession. For those who approach the case from a medical or a skeptical perspective, the tapes are evidence of severe psychosis, multiple personality disorder, and the psychological impact of her epilepsy and religious trauma manifesting in complex auditory hallucinations and vocalizations. Regardless of belief, the sounds recorded are harrowing, providing a raw and unfiltered record of a young woman in extreme anguish. The combination of the rigorous repeated ritual and the severe psychological stress led to Anneliese's rapid physical decline. During this period, Anneliese's body began to suffer catastrophic physical effects. She would compulsively perform up to 400 deep knee bends a day, causing her bones to break. She refused to eat, believing the demons prevented her. By the end, she was incredibly frail, covered in sores, and suffering severe emaciation. On July 1st, 1976, Anneliese Michel died in her home in Klingenberg am Main at the age of just 23 years old. She weighed only 68 pounds. The subsequent trial in 1978 for negligent homicide became a battleground between science and faith. The prosecution presented the autopsy, which determined the cause of death was malnutrition and dehydration. The defense used the very audio tapes we discussed earlier, hoping the jury would be convinced by the terrifying voices of the demonic entities. The court ultimately found all 4 defendants, the 2 priests and the 2 parents, guilty of negligent homicide. While their sentences were suspended, the verdict recognized the sincerity of their religious conviction, but underscored their legal responsibility for withholding vital medical care. The case was a profound shock to both the Catholic Church and the legal systems of the world. The facts remain undisputed. A young woman diagnosed with epilepsy and psychosis died because her medical treatment was abandoned in favor of a spiritual remedy. The case of Anneliese Michel remains an indelible, terrifying marker in the 20th century. It is a true story where the fear and pain were real and the consequences were fatal. What the facts demonstrate is a sequence of events that began with a treatable medical condition was tragically misinterpreted through a lens of extreme religious belief and ended in a preventable death. Anneliese's suffering, captured on tape and documented in court transcripts, is a solemn warning about the absolute necessity of medical intervention, even when faced with terrifying phenomena that seem to defy all natural explanation. While the modern Catholic Church maintains its official position on the existence of demonic possession, the Anneliese Michel case has profoundly impacted the way the ritual is practiced, emphasizing far stricter consultation with medical professionals to rule out psychiatric or neurological conditions before any exorcism is permitted. Her legacy is one of tragedy, but also of a powerful, undeniable legal and ethical precedent. At the end of the day, the scariest aspect of this case may not even be that of possible demonic possession, but rather the unwillingness, the reluctance to compromise belief or faith, even when the life of a young, powerless girl is at stake, even when she is desperately in need of medical attention. When society clings to only one perspective and becomes intolerant of all others, then that, my fellow strangers, is truly when horrifying things happen, not in some supernatural realm, but right here, right now, at this very moment. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode of The Weekly Strange. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of my new uploads. And if you really like the content I'm creating, please consider joining the channel as a member, and you get access to some pretty cool perks. Thank you for watching and listening on this Halloween night 2025. Good night.